Ever watched a show and thought, wait, why is this hitting too close to home? Welcome to the Tea and Takeaways, where I spill the tea on your favorite shows through a therapist lens, unpacking all of the emotional layers, the real life lessons hiding behind the drama. My name is Vanessa De Jesus Guzman, and I am a licensed therapist. And remember, I am not here to recap the entire series, but spoilers are definitely going to be given and a time will be had. So watch at your own risk. Okay, Memorial Day weekend, my husband put on a Netflix show, Sirens, and he was all about it because supposedly it had that girl from that dragon show. I can't even tell you what her name was or what that show was. I didn't watch that, but I saw Julianne Moore and Kevin Bacon and I was immediately sold. So we watched the first two episodes together, and of course, he was snoring before they were done. So he went to bed, but I was so hooked on the family dynamics of it all that I'm ashamed to say I stayed up until 3 in the morning and just binged the entire series because it was that good. So here we go. The tea. On the surface, Netflix Sirens is about one sister trying to rescue the other from the grip of a charismatic, very charismatic billionaire. That's right, billionaire with a B. But beneath it all, it was really a story about two women who grew up in the same house, who experienced major trauma and survived it in two very different ways. So the trauma aspect is one piece, but there's also piece about control. That was really, really big. So the island, by the way, I mean, the shots, like filming this must have been phenomenal because the island is like paradise. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the house, I mean, you can fit like a small village in there. The first thought I had was, who cleans this humongous place? But as I mentioned, they're billionaires, so I'm sure they didn't have that problem, which they didn't because it was a lot of showing the staff and the upkeep of it all. But beneath the surface of all that, the movie or the series is about control and not just about family dynamics, but about power dynamics. It touches a lot on women navigating systems that probably were never designed to honor them. These systems rooted in patriarchy and performance and in a lot of pain. And it also talks about power dynamics in terms of family to work to marriage. Power doesn't just influence relationships, it truly defines them. And we saw that a lot here. And it dares to ask, well, what happens when you stop playing along? And to everyone, from the billionaire husband to the billionaire wife to the sisters and even down to the staff. Here we go deeper with the team. We learn that the two sisters, Devon and Simone, didn't come from wealth. They didn't come from any type of ease. Their childhood was really unstable and it was filled of emotional neglect, financial hardship, and even the kind of parentification that forces kids to just grow up super duper fast. Huge spoiler alert, by the way. A couple of episodes in, we learned that the girl's dad was an alcoholic and that mom was unstable and was not supported while she was going through these hard times. So one day she actually died by suicide in her car, and she had Simone, the youngest of the two sisters, coloring in the back seat. And it was Devon, the older sister, who found Simone and got them help. But by then, their mom had passed away. And after the moms died, they were really left to themselves to raise themselves. Devon then went away to college, and Simone was left to starve when her dad wasn't present. And she was abused in the foster care system. And Devon eventually dropped out of college to pour into Simone, who, once she was able to get out from Buffalo, that's where they grew up, she never went back. And then Devon, again, the older sister, played this role of the protector. And then Simone, the younger sister, was very emotionally sensitive and she learned to adapt in life by seeking approval and by seeking attention from other people. And they were both raised in survival mode, but survival looked very different in both of them. So, as far as the takeaways in this one aspect, looking at it through the therapist lens, this isn't, by the way, a trauma PD or a trauma workshop. So, we are going to keep it light, but I wanted to acknowledge that, being that there's a lot here that I'm barely even touching. So, first, Devon, the older sister, she was really the fixer who was tired of fixing, right? She went to the island to really like show it to her sister. She was really like furious about it all. And and really wanted to bring her sister back because Devon was left to take care of their father on her own. But when she got there, it seemed like there was like a lifelong pattern of just being responsible for Simone's choices, for trying to keep her grounded, and for never really being able to rest as the older sister who had to keep it all together and help her little sister out. So, this is a classic parentified child when someone forces them to become like the emotionally proven adult too way too early. In adulthood, it's sometimes disguised as caretaking, as boundary blurring, and as resentment masked as really love. But Devin doesn't want to just save Simone. She needs to believe that she can, or else, like her whole identity as the responsible one, it'll start to unravel and turn into dependent behaviors that she had when she turned to alcohol and to sex. Simone, on the other hand, she found a maternal figure in Michaela. This is the billionaire wife. And once she got her attention and then her structure and then a deep level of elegance or high level of elegance, I should say, the billionaire, gave Simone the illusion of being chosen, right? Of being worthy to have this job. But this attention from Michaela, or Kiki as she went by for short, it came at a cost. And Simone's voice, autonomy, her reality were really all centered around Michaela's love and attention for her. So kids who grow up in an emotionally neglected households really internalize and believe that love must be earned. And they become really hyper attuned to others' needs, to others' approval of them. And Simone's pattern of attaching to powerful figures isn't just about wealth, it's really about safety because that's a safety that she didn't have as a kid, right? She didn't have that growing up. And she continuously goes on to confuse control with care. And then there's the aspect that Simone didn't just want a new life, she wanted like a whole new self. And Michaela offered her that. She gave her everything, the polished clothes, the security, the sense of being seen and valued. But the catch was that this version of Simone only existed if she played by someone else's rules. And when you grow up with chaos and with instability, it's easy to believe that reinvention means like erasure, like that your whole history was going to be erased. And Simone thinks as this as finding freedom. But in reality, she's disappearing, she's losing herself. And her sister was able to see that. And between like the island in and of itself, which we'll talk about towards the end, and then like the tension that they had and the unraveling of Michaela's grip on Simone, it really poses the question to themselves, I would hope, is who am I when I'm not being rescued? And who am I when I am not doing the rescuing? Deep question to think about. And then there's Michaela, the billionaire wife who again went by Kiki, who had all the power and all the control until she didn't, which we see at the end. And she doesn't just come across as like an over the top villain. She's actually very familiar. You know the type, like polished, powerful, magnetic, just draws you in. The kind of woman who really seems to have it all together and makes you feel like if you stay close enough and rub shoulders a little with her, that maybe that power will rub off on you. But underneath the mentorship that she gave Simone and the invitations, there was subtle control. What came across at first was subtle control, and then later on was very, very, intense. Because what can really seem like guidance can actually be a quiet way of like rewriting your own story for you. So that's what emotional manipulation often looks like. It doesn't come with these red flags, or like neon flashing lights. It comes with compliments, opportunities, the that feeling of like, oh, I was chosen. And Simone thinks throughout this all, especially at the beginning, that she was being elevated. But in reality, she wasn't just being elevated, she was being molded. Because then her voice gets smaller, her wants get quieter. And by the time that she realizes it, she doesn't even know who she is without Michaela's approval because she's become this version that is not really her. It's what Michaela molded her to be. And in terms of the power dynamics, there was also the dynamic between Michaela and her husband, Kevin Bacon. And there was this aspect to them. I mean, amazingly played again, Julianne Moore and Kevin Bacon. She floats through like the whole thing as a woman who knows exactly what's expected of her, right? Again, perfect poise, even in heels when she's by herself, kind of like Carrie in Sex in the City. But behind all of this, whining and dining, she was always like nervous behind that all. And she was very insecure, especially a lot of insecurity between, her and her husband and their relationship. Her husband, again, played by Kevin Bacon, he doesn't even need to like blink hard or raise his voice to show how much power and control he has, because even like just his whole existence, it's that kind of existence that makes you almost like shrink to survive. And what this really is a quiet coercion. This doesn't leave bruises, but it really plays a part on your identity because Kiki's performance, she's kind of like a shield, right? She needs to put up this front of being this type of person. And she's really mastered the art of being agreeable, even though her soul, you can see, is screaming. She didn't like the situations that she found herself in quite often. And then when it comes to power dynamics, this part cracks me up. There's the staff, and I haven't mentioned that yet. While the series was definitely, takes on these heavy themes, it is so funny in a very dark humor type of way. But I was laughing out loud throughout a lot of it, which is actually really hard to make me laugh out loud. So I thought they did it so, so, so well. So when we're talking about power dynamics when it comes to the staff, there's control in the name of order, obviously. There's a definite hierarchy on who comes first, second, and third. And those people closest to Michaela or Kiki have a power that feels like it's earned, but it's also very, very conditional. And they enforce the rules under this illusion of choice, but their compliance is survival. Like they really have to make sure that they do what she wants. If not, they're out of there, which we saw that happen. And when systems are built on power, everyone performs. Everyone knows what's expected of them. And the staff mirrors this broader message of the whole series that when you find yourself in these elite curated spaces, everyone kind of stays in their place. Everyone knows what to do and what not to do, more importantly so. And if you deviate from that, whether it be by your words, actions, your emotions, resistance, even by the truth, it is punished. So people comply not quite out of loyalty, but really out of fear. However, it is super interesting that later on or midway through the series, when the head of the staff, when he challenges Michaela in a very subdued, under the radar kind of way, but the challenge was there nevertheless. He made it clear that he doesn't bend to her and that his true boss was her husband. And that really caught her off guard. So, all in all, my friends, the biggest takeaways: power doesn't scream, power doesn't need to be loud. Very often it whispers and it masks itself as luxury, as love, even as mentorship and guidance. But this series really pulls it all back and it shows how women have been taught to make themselves small and likable or useful in order to survive. And it also teaches us that, again, it's a story of power. And if anyone tries to outrun their past, it's not always possible. And the sisters, Devon and Simone, really show us what happens when that becomes our default setting and how healing can only begin when we try to perform the role that we were assigned in childhood, not the one that we made up in adulthood. So I leave you with a homework assignment with a reflection question of what role do you play in your family story? And is it still serving you? That's a little bit on the heavy side, a little bit of a heavy reflection if you'd like to engage in that. And if you don't, please recommend this, series to a friend. I recommend for everyone to watch it, not just again for the fun of it, the luxury, there's some great fashion as well, but also for the laughs. It's very, very funny. And, to look into these power dynamics, they really scream a lot, even if you're not a therapist. And if you are, you're just like, mind blown of it all. So this was amazing. I hope they make more like this. And if you know of the next thing that I should be watching and reviewing, let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and like and subscribe, share it with a friend, and I hope to see you soon.